Good evening, and thanks for letting me be a part of the program tonight. My name is Mike Morley. I'm the Director of Corporate Communications and Government Affairs for Midwest Energy. The reason I was asked to speak with you tonight is because for most of my adult life, I've been getting paid to eat dinner with people in various capacities. Prior to working as a lobbyist for Midwest, I was a naval officer and took training with the State Department on dinner etiquette. As you can imagine, when you eat dinner with heads of state or ambassadors, etc., there's some very formal protocols that need to be followed. So I was asked to share some of those with you tonight. We'll go ahead and get started. First thing, before you show up, it's a good idea to do a little bit of reconnaissance on the people that you'll be having dinner with. You can usually find out who the top 2 or 3 people are that are going to be at your table. So take time, check their LinkedIn, maybe their Facebook, their Instagram pages. Find out maybe some things that you have in common. Perhaps you went to the same school. Maybe you were in the same fraternity or sorority with these people. Maybe you are all members of the same club, or you have kids that play soccer. Whatever those connections are, try to find those in advance. Try to show up about 3 to 5 minutes ahead of schedule. And then when you meet people, always make introductions to the senior first. So for example, if Dr. Mason was in the room and you were introducing a new student, you would approach Dr. Mason and say, Dr. Mason, I'd like to introduce John Smith. He's one of your business students from Colby. Always try to have a little bit of extra other than just the person's name. That way they can start a dialogue, and it makes it just a little bit easier for everybody. Next, when you're getting ready to be seated at the table, always allow the senior person to take their seat first. If you're one of the junior people at the table, you don't want to sit down, because then it makes it appear as if you're trying to usher the evening along. And when I say senior person, I don't necessarily mean the oldest person at the table, but by title, who's the highest. So in this evening's example, it might be Dr. Mason, the president of Fort Hays, would be the senior person. So once she takes her seat, then everybody else would go ahead and follow suit. Cell phones. Take a look at your table right now. I bet you probably have somebody at your table that has their cell phone sitting out facing up so they can check as messages or whatnot pop in. Always mute your cell phone before going to a dinner and place it where it's out of sight and out of reach. So in a coat pocket, in a purse, something like that. Resist the urge to check it if you hear it vibrate. If you do need to check it, if you're expecting an important call, always take the phone, excuse yourself, and then go out to the lobby or into the restroom so you can take it without offending anybody at the table. Table discussion. This is important, and it's the thing that people usually struggle with the most. There's 3 big topics that you want to stay away from. Number 1 is religion. Should never be discussed over dinner or in a business type setting. Number 2 is politics, because as we've seen this year, that can quickly lead to explosive behavior, and it just isn't good for anybody. And lastly is sex. Locker room talk, that kind of thing, really doesn't have any place in the business setting or at a formal dinner. Topics that are good: sports, travel, education, business, what's happening in the business community. You can talk about your family or their family, any hobbies that you might have, if you both own boats and like to water ski, whatever it is. But just be careful with issues of the day. Don't talk about elections or things like that, because again, that gets into some very sensitive areas. People love to talk about themselves. So do your homework on them and ahead of time, find out where those common areas are and let them talk about themselves. That's good, because at the end of the day, people love to do business with people that they like. So if you're a good empathetic listener and then you can interject when it's appropriate, you've made a new friend for life and possibly a new business partner or a new client. When eating, this has really been covered in the PowerPoint and some of the slides and whatnot, so we won't spend a lot of time on this. Don't chew with your mouth open. Take very small bites. Remember, you don't have to finish everything that's put in front of you. Just a couple bites is okay. And then, pay attention to the conversation. Enjoy the evening. You can always grab a burger or a taco on the way home if you're still hungry. Don't point with your fork or knife. So again, when you have your fork and knife here, don't start pointing around the table, talking to people. Take a little bit of food, chew it up, swallow, and then talk. Never refuse food that's already been portioned, even if it's something you don't like. I remember once in Cambodia we were served deer pancreas, which is as bad as it sounds, the pancreas of a deer. But again, you don't want to appear rude or offend your hosts. So cut up whatever it is, take just a couple little small bites, mix it in with things that you do like, drink some wine if needed, and then at least that way you won't offend anybody. If you encounter something like a bone or a big hunk of fat in whatever it is that you're eating, it always comes out of your mouth the same way it went in. So if you eat a piece of steak, it's got fat on it, put the fat back on the fork and put it on the edge of your plate. Similarly, if you're eating something with your fingers, a piece of chicken, and you get a bone in your mouth, just reach in, pull it out, and set it on the plate. Do not ever pick the napkin up off of your lap, spit it into your napkin, and then put it back down for two reasons. Number one, it can transfer onto whatever you're wearing, and then when you stand up, you've got chicken fat or whatever it is all over your outfit. The second thing is it can fall on the floor, and then it looks like you've made a mess of yourself. So always put it on the side of the plate, and you can always cover it up with other food if you'd like. Lastly, drinks. Most dinner or formal dinners, you'll be offered drinks or maybe even cocktails before. Always limit yourself to one and done. And that goes for the cocktail hour. You can have one cocktail before dinner, and then you sit down and start dinner. If you're served a wine with dinner, limit it to one. The last thing you want to do is have a lot of alcohol, and then your mouth starts to get a little bit loose, and then you turn somebody off by something you say. Always be aware of what the other people at the table are doing, especially the senior person, and kind of follow their lead. But typically, you'll find that they'll have one drink and then they'll stop. Lastly, never photograph yourself with alcohol in a business setting. Okay, that's fine when you're on vacation in Cancun or whatever, but if it's an office party or a gathering or something like that, not the time to be having a glass of wine or multiple. You'll notice that especially the more formal the setting, if somebody comes up to take a picture and you have a drink in your hand, set it down on a table, and then you can always come back to it later. Lastly, when it's time to go, wait for the senior person to get up first. The junior person at the table never is the first one up. You always follow the lead of the senior person. That way, it doesn't appear like you're trying to rush them through the evening. Well, I hope that's helpful. You can always reach out to me at any time at Midwest Energy. Just give the office a call and ask for Mike Morley. Otherwise, if there's no questions, enjoy the evening, and I hope it's been helpful.